It's the DC Crossover Podcast with your hosts, Mike Cerrone and Ben Simpson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DC Crossover. I am one of your hosts, Ben Simpson. Along with me, Mike Cerrone. You just heard his illustrious voice on the Anchor ad that he did before the episode. Yes, our show is on Anchor, which means you can find our show through Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There's some platform called Breaker. It's all over the place. You can also listen on the Anchor app if you are an Anchor user. But regardless, you can find us in a variety of ways, as well as streaming live on The Contender. That's thecontender.com. And follow them on Twitter at The Contender as well, because our show airs live on Tuesdays at noon, right after Bill Rowland. And it's kind of fun to be on Anchor now because we have some ads. We're going to hopefully have some more sponsors in the near future. So for now, you just have to hear Mike's voice before every episode, which is not a bad thing. You did a good job, man. You cut a great promo.
Thanks.
You know, you brought your own flair to it.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, it was smooth.
It sounded smooth a little bit, except for the straight cash homie. I tried to make it sound funny, but then I also tried to throw in I tried to throw in the Randy Moss
references and stuff.
Yeah. And,
I got it.
I mean, my girlfriend was like, I don't know about that. And
it's fine.
Yeah, so I was like, it's whatever. I had fun doing it because, you know, we're me and you are kind of perfectionists when it comes to audio content and stuff like that.
Sure.
When we come to, like, editing and stuff like that. So it took me a few different takes, and a couple times I kind of, misplayed some words and I kept mispronouncing things and whatever. So I got through about half of it before I had to start cutting something.
It's all part of the game.
It was definitely fun, though. I will say that.
You did a good job, and so you get to hear those ads, and hopefully we'll have some new sponsors come onto the show as well. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at the DC Crossover. The best way to find out about the show, and follow Mike at Cerrone16. One day, I will enter the Twitterverse with my own Twitter handle, Twitter account. But for now, I run the DC Crossover one. So if you want to talk to us, you want to talk to me, shoot a note over there. Big show in the works today. As you see by the title of the episode, we're going to be having another draft, just like we did the other day, where we did the DC athlete names. We're going to be doing the best sports video games draft, which is going to be a fun one.
A lot of them out there.
Because it's summertime. It's the dead zone when it comes to DC sports right now because the Wizards aren't in the NBA playoffs. The Caps aren't fighting for a Stanley Cup. The Washington football team, the training camp opens in like 30 days, I think, something along those lines. So all you really have right now is the Nats baseball. And we love the Washington Nationals, but we're not going to talk Nats for an hour, Mike. I mean, we could. I'm sure some people would enjoy it. But you know what? There's a big chunk of the audience that says, hey, guys, I want to hear the best sports video games. That's why I listen to this show.
And that's the thing that's the best part about at the end of some of our clips for the Contender, they actually put, for DC sports and other aspects of life. Because that's my best part. Whenever I hear that, I always just dive because it's
we're the only show
us
on the Contender that's talking fast food reviews and talking sports video game drafts and things like that. And there is some other great content, by the way. Check out other shows like the Windy City Breeze and things like that. They do great work. I actually just bought a Windy City Breeze hat off their merch store. And it looks fantastic, so I'm excited for that.
Cool.
But yeah, big show today. But before we get to that, Mike, you have been... now that the school year's over, you're able to kind of go out here and there, check out and as a fairly new resident of the Herndon area, I'm not going to give away your exact address or anything.
Yeah, give it away.
But you've been able to kind of frequent the local bar scene.
Yeah.
So that's fun. I mean, as somebody who grew up in the Herndon area, I know the places pretty well at this point. It's not a huge scene in the Herndon area, but there's some pretty good spots.
Yeah, that's for sure. And this past Wednesday was my beautiful girlfriend's birthday, and we went out. And I'm not a big sushi connoisseur, but she loves sushi, so I said, "All right, we'll go out there." And
it's not that good. I'm telling you, sushi's not that good. Here's the thing. Sushi is the most overrated food in existence. 100%. It is the most overrated food. Everybody likes to talk about how much they like sushi. It's not very good. It barely fills you up. It's got the weird rice where it's like cold, and then you have like the wasabi, and then let's eat some eel droppings or whatever, and let's roll it up, stick it in this sauce, pop it in your mouth. The thing is like 3 inches big. It's not filling you up. It's one of the most overrated foods in existence, and you can tell your girlfriend I said that. But I'm just telling you.
She listens to the show. That's why she listens to the show.
Like you had sushi at this dinner, Mike?
Yes. So I had.
Were you full?
I mean, look at me. I mean, I was definitely not full. I was not full.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah,
overrated food doesn't fill you up. Go get some Korean fried wings, or go get hibachi, or go to one of those other places. But sushi, everybody just loves. Oh, I'm picking it up with the chopsticks. I'm so international. Like everybody tries to be so cool with it. Sushi, overrated food. Overrated food.
Yeah, we ended up getting sushi, and the thing is that when I went in there, I accidentally said a cuss word, but it wasn't really loud because I accidentally spilled a little bit of my beer that I was there, and this group of 4 I don't know, teenagers or something like that, they glared at me, and I was like, we're eating sushi here with chopsticks. I'm in Herndon, Virginia. It's like get over yourself. So that was the funny thing is that was just a funny part. But we ended up going to get some sushi because she likes sushi. But like I said, I'm not a connoisseur of it. Like I'll eat it, but I'm not going to sit there and say sushi, wings, or sushi, or Taco Bell or something like that. It's like what am I going to choose? And I always choose something that I actually like to go for, and especially like you said, you want to be filled up. You don't want to sit there and eat rice that's rolled in salmon that's not cooked or whatever.
If I'm gonna eat rice, I want a pound of orange chicken on top of it. Like that's what if I'm gonna eat rice, that's what I'm gonna eat it with. Right. I'm not gonna eat it rolled up with a little eel. I don't know, eel noodle. I don't even know what they eat. I don't even know what sushi is. I barely had it.
Eel noodle.
I've had it like twice. It's terrible.
I mean, this one, the one roll that I got, it was okay. But I'm actually pretty damn good at chopsticks. I mean, that's the first time I've used a chopstick.
You've got good dexterity.
I mean, when I get Chinese food or something like that everyone says is fake and everything from the local Chinese joint down the street, I'm going to use a fork. But I'm not going to sit there and say like, hey, I'm going to sit next to my couch and try to eat a chopstick.
No.
But yeah, I definitely I'm pretty decent at chopsticks. But at the same time, I had a volcano roll, which is pretty damn good. That was really good. That was deep fried, which you would have liked.
Okay, yeah. If we're frying things, then I'm in. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll eat anything fried. But no, I don't like the cold rice. On those sushi stuff where it's cold rice. It's just gross. I
do like soy sauce. Soy sauce is very good. But I told my buddy, I said, you know what, when you eat sushi, I might just not have a great palate or something like that, but like when it always has like the sauce like drizzled on top, whenever you have the sauce drizzled on top, it's like all you taste. Because it's like rice and something else.
100%.
So he told me, he said you have to have like the raw stuff where it's like whatever the bottom part is, and like a little slip of
raw
some
stuff.
Fish. He's
like
that's when you taste the fish the most. And I said, well, I don't get it at all. I get it maybe once every 2 years. But now that me and my girlfriend are together, that I think she is gonna want me to go get more. So I will.
It was her birthday. If she likes it, she can obviously eat whatever the hell she wants. It's her birthday. Happy birthday. But I'm just saying, it's not for me. It's not for guys like you and me.
We went off on a tangent there, but like I said, sushi's, like I said, I'm not going to seek it out, but it's not bad. So, anyways, long story short, that's more of a short story long right there. But at the same time, the Friday we ended up meeting some of her coworkers and stuff like that. Went to Breakers, right down the street in Herndon, which is right down the street from where I live, and we were kind of talking about this off air, and they had the Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Huge game.
Huge game. Okay, big game. Tampa Bay Lightning, New York Islanders. This is whoever to go play the Montreal Canadiens, who are probably going to get demolished by Tampa Bay. Well, we'll get that in our picks later. But at the same time, me and the guy that was there as well, we were talking and we were like, man, where's the game? They had the Hawks and the Bucks game on, which was nice. It was fun to watch that. But at the same time, the Bucks were up like 40 points. Yeah, I was like, why do you have them on all like 4 projectors here? Like, so I went up to the guys at the front, like who were doing the stamps and stuff. I said, hey, where can I talk to somebody about just trying to get the because we were all talking and stuff like that and just BSing a little bit. I was like, where can I get the the hockey game on so we can sit there and watch hockey game and talk and just hang out?
Sure.
And he was like, well, you're going to go talk to one of the bartenders. I was like, they're not going to know anything. So I went up to the bartender, and she told me, she was like, do you know what channel it's on? And I was like, I don't. It's not my TV. Like, why are you asking me
what
that?
What channel it's on?
Yeah,
it's
and
on, I mean, just like you press the button on the remote. It's
called guide.
It's to guide you to all the channels. Like that's the point of the thing. But also, if you're running a bar and you play a lot of sports, you should probably know anytime, especially since there's only like 3 sports even on right now: baseball, basketball, and hockey, and 2 of which are in deep in the playoffs. You should have a general sense of, hey, there's 2 major games tonight. We're going to put the basketball game on these number TVs. Hockey, I understand. But even then, the basketball was game 1 of the series? Hockey was game 7.
Yeah, it was game 2. Game 2, because Atlanta won the first game. Yeah, Bucks won the second one.
Why was the hockey game getting shafted? Game 7?
That's the thing. It made no sense because, just like you said, the bars should have all the types of games on, but they don't really care. They just put something on like ESPN. They're like, okay, ESPN News, and then we're seeing some like college softball game from 1966 or something like that. Some
we're
random
watching
thing.
PTI from like 3 days ago. Like, that's
the thing. I'm sitting there like, and like I said, we were all there just to have some fun and whatever, and so it wasn't a big deal. I was on that, when they asked me, I said I don't know. I googled it for like 2 seconds because the lady told me to. I googled it for like 2 or 3 seconds. I couldn't really find it right then. I was
you did her job for her. Like
I said whatever, and then I went back, and the guy that I was hanging out with the group of people, he was like, well, this can't be. So he ended up going to the bar and started talking to them. He was a little bit irritated because obviously the Isles beat his Bruins.
I get it though. It's a game 7. I mean, game 7 is in hockey, or I'd put a game 7 in hockey up with like almost any other sport when it comes to game 7 because it's nonstop action. Hockey, you have to get so lucky sometimes. The puck just has to bounce your way, and game 7s are just absolutely crazy. And that was a good one. Yeah. I remember. It was a Monday Night Football. The Lions never get on Monday Night Football, but it was the one where it was Lions Jets, where the Lions threw like, or where Sam Darnold threw like a pick on the first drive. It was his rookie year, but it was Lions Jets, and I went to. I almost never do it, but I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to watch. The Lions are on TV. We're going to go to the bar. I forget which one it was, somewhere in Herndon, and it was a sports bar. And we went to the bar, and they didn't have the Monday Night Football game on any of the TVs. So I went and asked. I was like, hey, do you guys mind putting the game on? And they're like, what game? I was like, Monday Night Football? Like the football game? It was the only football game that's on television right now, and you're a sports bar? And the guy had to like, he put it on one TV for me that was like partially blocked by this really fat guy who's at the bar.
And it has like a blue line because the screen's broken or something.
I could barely see it. And then the Lions like immediately start playing like butt, so I ended up leaving anyways. And it was like, this is just the worst. But and they were running like a trivia game too. And it was like, guys, like this is a sports bar. I come here to watch sports. Yeah, I don't come here to do Jeopardy. I'm not Ken Jennings. I'm come here to watch the Detroit Lions lose on Monday Night Football.
Right.
That's
what
I came to do.
That's the thing. Like Breakers is me and my girlfriend go there every now and then just to like hang out for a little bit because it's right down the street.
Yeah, it's a good bar.
We go to Ned's, we go to Breakers, we go to stuff like that because it's right down the street. We can get there pretty quickly. But we went there and it was, like I said, it was a group of people, but we just wanted to hang out at the high top, which where a lot of people were at, like the dartboards and stuff like that, because it wasn't too crowded at that point. And we were like, hey, let's just turn it on because, it's already, by that time, I think the game started at like 7:30. So by that time, it was already in the third period. So we were like, hey, can we just see the last period? And it was 1-0 game. We were just like, we were a little dissatisfied by the service at Breakers. But that just kind of, when we were talking off air, that just kind of, pinched a nerve for both of us because whenever we go to a bar, we always have to sit there and we always have to find, because one bar always has like Nickelodeon on or something like that. It's like they can't even read the subtitles. The kids are watching Nickelodeon, so it's like,
no, I don't know. Man. I never understand it. If you run a bar or restaurant and you have kind of a sports, hey, we have sports on at this restaurant, you gotta know. If you're the manager of that bar, you got to be like, hey, guys, even if your staff doesn't watch sports or is into sports, you just say, hey, guys, there's 2 major games tonight, NBA playoffs, we got NHL playoffs. Let's make sure those are on some of the TVs. It's a very simple conversation. But
yeah, exactly.
We'll relax now. We'll calm down. We'll get into the show here. Let's hit the rewind machine real quick and talk a little bit about what has happened this past week in DC sports, Monday through this recording. Starting off with the Washington Wizards. Not a whole lot of news in this area. Still waiting to see who's going to be hired as the head coach. Sam Cassell, Wes Unseld Jr., those are the 2 names that you and I talked about last show, Mike. Those are the 2 names everybody's saying are the front runners for the Wizards job. People agree nationally that those are the two guys that are in the lead for the job. So we'll see. Washington Capitals, not any big news there, but one kind of fun note is 17 years ago today, the Caps drafted Alexander Ovechkin, one of the best to ever not only play for DC, but to play the game as a whole. And, man, what this franchise would be without this guy. I mean, If they did not make that pick 17 years ago, this would be a very different franchise. And then the Washington Nationals, 4-2 week for them. I'll start with the first series, then I'll turn it to you. On Tuesday, the Nats beat the Phillies 3-2.
Unreal, man.
This was a wild game because this was the first week of the substance checks by the umpires. And in this game, Max Scherzer, who hates being checked, not only had his normal checks, but also Joe Girardi of the Phillies asked for an additional check of Max. He gets pissed. He stares down Girardi. Later on in the inning, Girardi comes out of the dugout screaming at Kevin Long, the hitting coach of the Washington Nationals, and gets tossed from the game. Insane game regardless. The Nats win. Wednesday, another crazy game. What a wild series. 13-12. I remember checking the score at one point because I couldn't watch the beginning of the game. I saw Andrew McCutchen hit a grand slam, and I was like, all right, this isn't our night. Nats win 13-12 because the Nats got a grand slam as well. One-run game. Unbelievable. And it was that was it. It was just a 2-game series against the Phillies. Nats take them both.
That was an unbelievable series because I remember literally texting our group thread getting really pissed off on Wednesday because they just basically let up the lead late in the game with Tanner Rainey, who was terrible at that point. But overall, Josh Bell, the grand slam, Starlin Castro with the game-winning hit in the 9th inning. Then we look at the Marlins series. This series was very important. It was an in-division series. The Marlins, they're okay. They can surprise you here and there. But we beat them 7-3 in the first game with Schwarber hitting 2 more bombs. This guy is just on a tear right now. Unbelievable. But then the next game happened on Friday. 11-2, they lost to the Marlins. Schwarber does hit another home run, 13th in his last 14 games. They lose 11-2, so that was a dud overall. But then Saturday they lost again in a close one with John Birdie, I believe, hitting the game-winning home run in the 5th inning, I believe it was. Marlins rookie Zach Thompson strikes out 11 in 6 innings against the Nats. But then Sunday, which today, as we record this, Trey Turner and Josh Bell both homer in the 6th inning, and they salvage a 2-2 split with the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, definitely a series that the Nats, I mean, we were hoping for a series win. We were hoping they were going to take 3 of 4.
Right.
You'll take the split in this situation. I mean, again, like at this point, I don't know what that was. Something almost played. At this point, if you're the Nats, you're definitely going to you're going to want to win series or split series moving forward. The key is not losing series, but there's a lot more Nats talk later on in the episode we'll get to. Let's move on to the crossover. Only going to talk about the Wiz and the Nats tonight. Let's go ahead and start with
the Washington Wizards.
We will start with the Washington Wizards. Just brief Wizards talk here. We do have a fun draft to get to. But with the Wizards, just wanted to point out some of the recent hires in the NBA because some spots have been filled. Starting with the Celtics, you had Ime Udoka, who was a former Nets assistant. He also coached under Greg Popovich, coached 1 season under Brett Brown in Philly. So Brad Stevens has his man now. Ime Udoka is off the board. The Dallas Mavericks bring in Jason Kidd, who, let's stop there for a second. Mike, I mean, Jason Kidd, he coached the Bucks for a bit, and I think maybe one other team. I don't know about you, but everything that I've heard of Jason Kidd as a head coach in this league has been negative. Like, right. I don't think he's had that great of a track record as an NBA head coach. So kind of surprising to me that teams would be clamoring to hire him, especially the Dallas Mavericks, who are kind of one of those teams that are on the cusp of possibly being good, you know?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about this hire, mainly because I'm always kind of wary when it comes to former players as coaches. Because I think, honestly, if you compiled all the former players as head coaches' records, I think that it's not going to be that good. I mean, Tyronn Lue, he's a former player, but he ended up getting LeBron, and it's all these different types of situations where it's like it's easy when you get LeBron James as your star player because he's going to get you to most likely the Eastern Conference, Western Conference, wherever he is, finals most years that he plays. So I don't know about this hire, man. I just think when you're looking at the Mavs, it comes down to you had Rick Carlisle for a long, long time, and then all of a sudden you go to Jason Kidd, which I think is a downgrade. I think they should have easily found somebody else because when you have a player like a Luka Doncic, and you know how much I like Luka, I mean, I just think that he is the face of the NBA alongside of Trae Young and Zion Williamson, these type of young guys that are out there that are, sub 25 years old. And these type of guys that are going out there that are star players at that age, you need to find somebody that's going to mesh with you really well. Now, I don't know if Luka, because Luka is technically a point guard mixed with a small forward. I don't know because Jason Kidd is kind of the type of stat line that Luka is. Jason Kidd got a ton of triple doubles back in the day as well when he was playing for the various teams he was on. So I think Luka might add up with him well doing that, but I just don't see Jason Kidd being this X's and O's guy that is going to help with maximizing Porzingis' play and trying to limit his injuries, and then having Luka not touch the ball 7 times a possession and tire him out until he gets 27 years old and he's an old man at that point. So I just don't understand the hire, but we could be wrong. But just like you said, I just think that it's kind of odd because his track record isn't like one of these Greg Popovich type of guys. So I'm not exactly sure. I just think it might be because Mark Cuban's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. Obviously, he has a lot of money, Shark Tank, owning the Mavs, all this kind of stuff. Smart guy. I just don't know what the reasoning was with this because I think there are other coaches out there that are more plausible to be their head coach with a star like Luka Doncic at the helm.
Yeah, Jason Kidd, I guess he coached a year in Brooklyn, and then he had like 4 years in Milwaukee, eventually getting canned in 2018 or 2017, something like that. So I don't know. It's just a strange hire to me, especially for a team that's trying to improve. You got the Pacers taking the ex-Mavs coach, Rick Carlisle, is now coaching Indiana. Chauncey Billups possibly coaching the Blazers, which is probably the most interesting one of these hires. First-time head coach, former player, coaching a team in Portland that still has one of the best guards in the league, and Damian Lillard has some pretty good role players, a team that's always been looking to get over that hump and actually make a run at a title because they just make the playoffs every year. That's all the Blazers do. If you're a Blazers fan, you're so used to watching playoff basketball and watching this team leave in like the second round. Like that's what the Blazers do. And now you bring in Chauncey Billups, and it's like, is that the guy that's going to get you from the second round to the NBA Finals? I don't know. That's another kind of head scratcher for me.
Yeah, and that's something that I was going to ask you because you're a huge Pistons fan. But I think that looking at Jason Kidd compared to Chauncey Billups, yes, Jason Kidd has been a head coach before, but that doesn't really mean too much. But Chauncey Billups has been in the booth. He knows head coaches. He knows different systems, all that kind of stuff. I just think that when you look back at the Pistons team with Rip Hamilton and Tayshaun Prince and Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace, you like how I know the entire roster, starting lineup, but. That's just the thing. That team was literally at that time. I think that team was similar to the Warriors. Now they didn't have one guy that was going to go out there like Steph and take over a game. Big Ben would go out there and just bully people. Rasheed would just get in everybody's face. Tayshaun Prince was a pretty decent defender and stuff like that. And then Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups were just the guards in the backcourt that did everything known to man that you want guards to do. There was just not really one star on that team that was going to take over a game. But I think that when you look at his history, I think he can actually be a decent coach and has the right plan in place because he knows what a team needs rather than just a star or rather than 2 stars or whatever it may be. Yes, you have Dame Lillard, you got CJ McCollum, and you got a couple of, I think Enes Kanter is still on that team if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
You still got guys and pieces on that team, but you don't need, the Nets roster to go win a championship because the Pistons did that with a roster that didn't have, the top player in the league or whatever it may be. They had one of the best centers in the league because I had Ben Wallace on my my fantasy team every single year because that guy would just grab double every single game. It was ridiculous. But those type of players like a Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton and all those kind of guys, that's what I think a team. It's just like baseball. I love small ball. Some people don't like that. They like to have the big boppers like the Yankees do. But I like small ball. You manufacture runs, you get good pitching, you win games. But it's ugly. People don't like that. People don't like winning ugly. And I think Chauncey Billups has that recipe in place to make the Blazers have that type of team like he did with the Pistons back in the day.
To me, the move just screams, keep Dame happy. Like, that's all I look at this as.
True.
You get a young guy who was a former point guard, so he's going to be speaking the same language as Dame as far as, like, hey, I used to run the point, you run the point. I'm a young guy. I'm sure they get along well. That's all this screams to me. This doesn't – if I'm a Blazers fan, I'm not excited by this move. I'm not excited by saying, oh, Chauncey Billups is going to be the guy to take us to the promised land. That's just not my thinking. But – hey, you know what? You got to give some of these guys a shot, just like you got to try to give Sam Cassell a shot. But Chauncey Billups was one of the other names similar to Cassell that was being thrown out there. I think the move hasn't been made official yet. I think it's just one of those things where everyone's saying the Blazers are going to hire Chauncey Billups. So we'll hold off on officially giving our opinion on it. But, for the most part, I get what you're saying. I think Billups does have – he was a journeyman in the league before he won the title with the Pistons. He had kind of bounced around a lot in his career. And those are the types of guys that do sometimes make good coaches because they've worked with so many different types of people, so many different players, organizations, especially a guard is always typically, they say, going to be a good coach because they kind of understand the game in a little bit different way. But we'll keep an eye on it. The three teams all without coaches right now, the Pellies, the Magic, and the Wizards. Pelicans let go of SVG. The Magic get rid of Steve Clifford, and the Wizards, of course, as we know, got rid of Scott Brooks.
Very interesting, though.
There's some names still out there, Mike. All names that we talked about on this show. We talked about Sam Cassell. We talked about Wes Unseld Jr. We talked about Becky Hammon. All three names that could be the three people that get hired by these three teams. So we're still waiting. As Wizards fans, we've seen three other teams hire their coaches. Four if you count the Blazers. And there's only a couple of us left at this point. So the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
The candidates are shrinking. The clock's ticking. We'll see what the Wizards do here. I'm still even a week later, holding on to my opinion that I think Wes Unseld Jr. will be the head coach of the Washington Wizards. But I wouldn't be surprised if Becky Hammon or Cassell gets hired too, but I'm still thinking it's going to be Wes Unseld Jr. Have your opinions changed at all from our last episode?
Not too much. I am really curious with the Pelicans who's going to coach that team because they did have a number one pick. They got Zion Williamson. They got Brandon Ingram. They got some other guys that actually are good pieces around them. And then obviously they can still build around them with free agency and so on and so forth. But the Magic, who really cares? Their future is still up in the air with all the young guys they have. But I just think that I think that you're right. I think they're going to go with the easy play with Wes Unseld Jr. because I don't think really the Pelicans and the Magic are going to entice him too much to say, "Oh, come be our head coach" when the Wizards are right there. But I think that. With you saying you want Sam Cassell, I want Becky Hammon, I want them to make a little splash, and and I'm not trying to do that for like a political stance or anything like that. I'm trying to do that because I think that she's been under a coach like Greg Popovich.
She's got credibility. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. She's got the credibility, and she has that kind of hybrid, I would say, kind of mentality because she knows women's basketball and she also knows men's basketball, and she knows what works well with both, that she can kind of integrate and kind of make, like I said, a hybrid system for this team. Because, hey, at this point, you're not going to lose so much. We're the 8th seed. We lost in 5 games. Overall, I just think that when it comes down to it, it's either going to be a rebuild or you're going to make a splash, kind of like the Celtics did with Brad Stevens, and they turned their franchise around as well. So who knows?
Yeah, might as well make some headlines. If you're not going to be winning titles, might as well make some headlines. So we'll see what the Wizards decide to do there. Only want to touch on the Nats real briefly. I'm not even going to play the intro because I want to give us plenty of time to do the draft, the sports video games draft. I just wanted to point out, the Nats are playing really well here, now up to almost playing 500 ball. They're at 37-38. They're second in the division. But I do want to let the fans know, here's the schedule ahead for the Nats. You got the Mets for a game, Tampa for 2, but then you have 4 games against the Dodgers, 4 games against the Padres, 3 games against the Giants, and then the All-Star break. The schedule is about to get a little rough.
Right.
And so we'll just play that into this forecast that's coming up here. Is You've got the Mets on Monday for a one-off, one game. That's it. This is a makeup. Then you've got two against Tampa. They keep doing these weird two-game series against the Rays. I don't know why that's the case. But then you have the Dodgers, like I said, Dodgers, Padres, and Giants.
Huge games.
This is a big stretch for this team, especially when they hit the road, because they got to play the Padres and the Giants on the road. They do get the Dodgers at home, which is nice, but the Nats, and this is before you get your All-Star break. So, I mean, if the Nats could use this opportunity to possibly stay in that second spot or third spot in the division, or they could lose to some very good NL West teams and drop back down to like fifth. I mean, it could go a lot of different ways here over the next couple of weeks, Mike. And the problem is these games all start at like 10 o'clock. I know I'm not going to be watching.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the biggest thing, I think, when you come down to like these last, let's see, you got 14 games left before the break. So they got 14 games left. I think, honestly, and it obviously depends on what the Mets do and so on and so forth with how their performances are against the teams they play. But I think you have to be, hopefully, and it doesn't have to be the second spot. It could be the third spot or whatever in the standings because they're all so close. I just think that you have to stay within 5 games. I think that's something that's kind of something to shoot for. You got to look and see, like, okay, if we split with the Dodgers and we split with the Padres, can we win a series against San Fran? They did split a 4-game series not too long ago against San Fran.
True.
So they will be in California for a good 10-day span or however it may be. But the biggest thing is you have to stay within a certain amount of games. Now, I understand that it's the All-Star break. It's right in the middle of the season. They just have to have that number in mind where you can't sit here and out of the next 14 games, one is including the Mets, which is tomorrow for June 28th. That's the biggest thing is you cannot sit there and say, all right, we're going to, split and we'll go 7-7. You don't want to do that. You have to try to get above 500 in these next 14 games, mainly for the sole fact that, like I said, I don't know who the Mets are playing. I don't care who the Mets are playing because the Mets are just annoying to me, so I don't even pay attention to them. But at the same time, you just look at it and say, we have to have a number in mind. And I think within 5 games, which as of right now, if you beat the Mets tomorrow, it'll go down to 3. And then right there, then you have a nice little 2-game cushion just to stay within that 5-game span.
Tomorrow's a huge game. It's just one game, but it's huge. I mean, that's picking up that game in the standings. I mean, that's going to be. And I'm trying to look at the pitching matchups for tomorrow.
I don't see anybody for the Nats right now.
Nats haven't announced that Jared Eichhoff is going to be the starter for the Mets. So you're not facing DeGrom or something like that. You're facing Eichhoff, who didn't even have any stats, so he must be coming off injury or something. But we'll keep an eye on it. Huge next couple of weeks.
Here's the biggest thing too. I'm also going to add this in there real fast before we get to the draft and everything. Strasburg. They updated it today that he completed a 25-pitch bullpen session, and that's a big thing because obviously he's not going to most likely play before the All-Star break, which kind of sucks because we need him for those games. But I think that you just kind of keep him out, and if they really think he's ready, maybe pitch during the San Fran series, but I think you just give him the next 2 weeks off.
Yeah, wait till after
and,
the break.
And just work it out. So we don't know about that, but obviously Eric Fetty, who we said last week was the ace, and he didn't have a great start the last start.
No, he's hurt.
He's on the IL too as well. So we'll have to see, man. We'll have to see. The pitchers are just dropping like flies, so we'll have to see what happens. But like I said, they have to keep, in my opinion, the 5 games back deficit at least going into this gauntlet of West Coast series.
Luckily, we've got Max back, and he pitched well today. But yeah, Strasburg. If this team can have Strasburg and get hot after the break and go on a little run, I mean, this could get interesting. But these next couple weeks are going to be huge. All right, people, settle back and enjoy another edition of our draft shows here. This time, we're going to be hitting up the best sports video games. Couple stipulations on these that Mike and I have discussed beforehand, but just to let you guys know, it has to be a specific game, not a franchise. So you can't say Madden. You have to say Madden 21 or whatever, that sort of thing. And of course, nobody would ever say that because that game's terrible. The sports, and we didn't necessarily talk about this part, but I'd say the one, and I don't know if you have this on your list, Mike, but I would say when I was doing my research, there were some lists of best sports video games that had the Tony Hawk series on their best sports games. I'll leave that up to discussion. I'm not necessarily saying I have one of those games on my list, but when I thought of sports games, I thought of kind of the traditional sports. But I'll leave it up to a discussion if we get to that point, if one of us picks one of those games. But otherwise, it's specific games, specific years. We'll throw out the consoles if we maybe played on them, played those games before. But and we'll let you guys vote. So go to follow us on Twitter at the DC Crossover. We'll put up the final matchups, and so that way you guys can vote on who do you think has the better starting 5. That's how we're doing these. We're going to each pick 5. We're going to go back and forth. It's a snake draft just like we did last time. So,
by the way, real quick, I think that we need to. So I was talking to Jess earlier about this because I asked her what her opinion was, and she doesn't play video games, but I asked her what her opinion was on certain things, and I told her we're doing this draft, and I said, "Does Mario Kart count as a sports game?" And she said no. Yeah, and I looked online, and they were like, "It's auto race, and it's a sport." Okay, well, it's a go-kart. It's not auto. It's not your NASCAR.
I'll tell you right now, Mario Kart is not on my list.
Yeah, I'm not putting that on there. I think we should discount Mario because everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Mario Kart, you left it off there." Like, I don't think we're gonna say Mario Kart.
That's a good idea.
We're going with sports, I think, that are in the Olympics and sports that are not croquet or anything like that. But I'm saying sports, some sports in the Olympics, and also, like you said, traditional sports, things that you look at and you're like, okay, we know that's a sport. So I think that I would mix in like X Games and Olympics and things like that. Those like off key kind of competitions. I think you can also include those. But I don't think that's off the table. But there you go.
Got it. All right. No, that's a good point. All right, so last time I did the number behind my back thing and made you guess. This time, why don't you hold a 1 or 2? You don't have to do it behind your back. You do it on the table.
I'm doing it right here now.
Or whatever. Right. I'm going to guess you're holding up a number 1.
You are, right.
Okay.
My sweet index finger.
So I will have the option to take the number 1 pick or go with the 2 pick because it is a snake draft. I'm going to go with... I'm going to take the 2nd pick.
Damn it.
I think I'm going to be able to get some really good value at 2 and 3 for the draft. So let's settle in here.
We're settling
into the draft here. Yeah, I know. I keep telling everybody, settle down, everyone.
Settle down, everybody.
All right, the best sports video game draft. Mike, you are officially on the clock.
So I wish we should have came up with names. That would have been fun to come up with names, but who cares? So
it's too late.
Yeah, whatever. So I have 10 main ones on my list. I went through extensive research.
Yeah, no, I got a good list here too.
Went over like 5 or 6 different websites, and I was comparing games and contrasting games and different decades and different things of that nature. Now, a lot of my list has me reverting back to my childhood, which is a good thing as well, because obviously when you're a kid, back in the day, because we're similar in age and stuff like that, and we used to play all the systems. I mean, my grandparents had like Super Nintendo and different things of that nature. But my first pick is going to be something that I think is common with a lot of gentlemen out there, maybe some ladies that might like this game. But I think it's a game because of the nostalgia factor that people just look at it and they're like, I cannot believe this was just discontinued, mainly for certain reasons. You might know this game off the top of your head.
Okay.
I see in the Zoom that you're like really thinking right now.
I'm trying to think of where you're going here, because I'll say right now, I have a pick that I think should be the number 1 pick, but I don't know if that's where you're going. So I'm excited. Excited to see what you got.
So this one, like I said, this game was discontinued because of legal reasons, but at the same time, it was released in 2013, and I played it on Xbox 360. So the pick is in. The first pick of the best sports video game draft. I'm stalling for you. The best sports video games draft between Cerrone and Simpson. The very first pick for Mr. Mike Cerrone, that is me, is NCAA Football 2014.
Yes. Okay, good.
Xbox 360.
It's an obvious pick. It's an obvious pick. It's definitely... Now, I believe it's NCAA 14 is the game, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was released because a lot of the EA games, stuff like that, were released a year before the actual game title. So this one was released. Right. So all the Maddens were released a year before and stuff like that. But this one was released in 2013. So NCAA 14, I played it on Xbox 360. And because of, like we said, legal reasons, they discontinued the game. But supposedly they're bringing them back. We'll have to see about that.
No, it's a great pick. It was exactly what I was thinking as far as the unanimous number 1 overall pick.
Right.
It is. I still play it on my PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, sorry, that I still have. Yeah. I still play that game because it is just one of the most fun experiences you can have. You can play for any sort of college you want. You can do the career mode where they even start you in high school, I think, where you're playing as a high school athlete, and then you get to go to college.
Isn't it something like you do like a combine, and then like all of a sudden they're like, okay, you get drafted or you get recruited by these 3 colleges or something like that.
It is so great because it's also the graphics actually hold up. I mean, again, I play it, and the graphics really hold up and work really, really well still to this day. It is one of my favorite games. I will say the reason why I have not thrown away my PlayStation 3 or given away or sold or anything is because of NCAA Football 2014. It is the only reason I still have my system.
And the funny thing is, I actually have a PlayStation 2. I have some other older systems, like I have a Super Nintendo and an N64 and stuff like that. But I do have my PlayStation 2, and I have probably 25 games for PS2. It's crazy. But there was a real quick story before we get to your pick. I was in college in freshman year, and I know you've had similar situations like this. I was on the floor with all the football players, so they were there like 4 weeks early, so they all knew each other. So I just kind of like was late to the party, but they ended up having one team in one school in every. There was like 8 guys. They had like one school in the SEC, and they all like played each other, and it was like this huge party because they were like, oh, Tyrell's playing Mike over here. It's like it's Alabama versus Mizzou, or some crazy thing, and it was like a huge because like everyone would be going nuts because there'd be like a party of 10 people in there just watching this game because it's like that's the week that they were playing or something, and it was crazy. And it's just fun because like I said, you know the players because they have the numbers on there and they have the stat. That's how they went with the stats and stuff like that because they're like, okay, this is Eddie Royal or this is whoever it is, David Wilson I always go with Tech players, but it's just funny because you see those situations and those are always funny. I know you have stories like that as well, but that is a great game.
It's one of the best games. Like I said, it's one of the best. It is the number 1 pick. It's the unanimous number 1 pick. I would not put any other game above this in my mind. So I think here's the thing. You have the number 1 pick. You went with the top game. I think you made a great choice. Now keep in mind this, people, the voting between Mike and I on Twitter, it's going to be for the full 5 squad, the 5 games that we each pick. So just because Mike has NCAA Football 2014 doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to win this draft because he's still got to pick well for his next one. So I've got back-to-back picks here. Starting with the second pick in the draft. So there's a couple directions I could possibly go here. But I think an NCAA football would have been my pick if I was in your situation. So I think you did the right one there. I got 2 games that I have my eye on, but I think I know where I'm going to go here.
All righty.
With the second pick in the Best Sports Video Games Draft, I am going to select MVP Baseball 2005.
Oh, Manny Ramirez.
Manny Ramirez was on the cover. And by the way, this is for PlayStation 2. Now, I think it played up probably on the other consoles too. But here's if you aren't familiar with this game, here's some things to note. This game people have put it on lists of saying it is one of the best sports video games of all time. This game was before its time, really. The Dynasty modes, the minor league baseball, being able to bring up prospects and play as the minor league teams and things like that, going back and forth. This was pretty new, especially in 2005. The Dynasty modes and things like that were not as advanced at the time. You had Manny Ramirez on the cover, coming off of the Red Sox World Series run the year before in 2004. So baseball fever was at a high at the time, but there's so many things to like about the game. The soundtrack was absolutely killer. The graphics, not so great, I will say, but I think just for baseball fans, I got so much mileage out of that game. I played that game so much, and for baseball fans, it came after the Triple Play series, which was a video game series, and then this predates I believe MLB The Show started in like 2006 or like 2007 or something along those lines. So this was the perfect kind of transition before the MLB The Show series, which I would say are one of the best game series of all time. But yeah, MVP Baseball is my pick.
Well, that's the thing is that I transitioned from PlayStation to Xbox mainly because of the online feature at the time, at least. I had PlayStation 2 and then I transitioned to 360. But that's the biggest thing is that when I looked at the baseball games, obviously, like you said, the show was mainly for PlayStation, and I was talking to you for the last 5 years about when are we going to get a baseball game that's not like cartoons. They're playing baseball on Xbox, and they finally made it cross-platform for the show. So I play that like nonstop nowadays. But I definitely believe I had MVP Baseball 2005. If I'm not mistaken, I might have. They also had the Slugfest games as well. That was another baseball game that I had. But yeah, baseball games, and I love baseball, but the problem is that a lot of times, Xbox and PlayStation, they either have one or the other, and Xbox didn't have a lot of baseball games. So finally, I will give you props on that pick because baseball games are hard to come by, and if they're done well, then obviously they should be a high pick.
The next pick is kind of a tough one, Mike, because I've got a lot of options as far as some areas that I could go. I've got about, I'd say there's like 3 names I'm looking at as far as games, possible choices here. I don't want to screw this pick up.
Don't screw it up.
But I think, all right, let's play the.
Meanwhile, by the way, MVP Baseball wasn't on my list.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I am going to go with Backyard Baseball.
Oh, man.
2001 is my pick. Backyard Baseball 2001, which was the first year where they introduced the
All-Stars.
The real athletes.
Right.
So it was the real so the year before was just all the original characters, all the
I got it released 1997 is what I have on my list.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Right.
This is 2001, which was released May 19th, the year 2000. Computer game only, obviously. And as we all know, we've talked about Backyard Baseball on the show probably more than we've talked about any DC sports team. It's one of the most beloved franchises of all times. And there's not, I don't even really need to say that much more about it, but specifically I chose 2001 because it was the first time you could play as, just the idea of taking major leaguers, shrinking them down and making them look like kids. You're playing with like Cal Ripken Jr. on your team. You're playing against Randy Johnson, but you also have Pablo Sanchez on your team. You have Maria Luna on your team. We've done the Backyard Baseball draft on this show.
Right.
I just think it was such a cool concept, and that as a kid, I played that game nonstop. I still, as an adult, I still sometimes play the game.
Yeah,
such a great game.
That's the funny thing is I was actually I went over to my parents to grab some stuff out of my storage bins in the basement, and the funny thing was I saw backyard football or something like a CD in there, and I was like, man, I got to start playing that again. But that's the funny thing is that when you look at that game, like you have like Ken Griffey Jr., who in real life is probably like 6'4" or something like that, and for some reason in that game he was like he didn't have a neck or like a body. It was like it was just like legs and a head. But it was cool though because he had his backwards hat and all that kind of stuff. And it was so awesome.
Cool. So cool. Such a great game. I don't even need to say anything more about it. I'm glad I got it at number 3.
Yeah. So the snake draft is obviously difficult because I'd rather us go back and forth because it would make it more interesting.
I think next draft we'll go back and forth, but this one we'll stay with the snake since we already started it. But
because I would rather you choose like one of mine so I can start deleting them off my list. But I did have Backyard Baseball on there, so there you go. Okay. But mine was the original because I just went with the original, even though I like yours better actually because it's more cool. Like you have like Larry Walker or something like that getting up on the dish. So my next game. I'm going to go vintage on this one. I'm going to go vintage.
I'm excited.
There was a lot of I bet you're excited. There was a lot of different people that were like clamoring for this game online, different things of that nature, because it was back released in 1993.
Wow.
1993. Wow. It was accessible. Yeah, that's right. It was accessible on arcade form and Super Nintendo.
Okay.
So I'm trying to give you hints so you can think about it.
I kind of have a feeling. Okay.
That's like a game inside the game here. So my pick is in, and the pick is the original NBA Jam.
Oh, okay. Great pick. Yeah.
NBA Jam. The original NBA Jam was like, he's on fire! Stuff like that. And like you just get like because I don't think they had Jordan in the game. And they didn't have a team that was really stacked. Because I think the Bulls team was like Pippen and some other like random guy or whatever.
Yeah, like Horace Grant or something. I don't know. Yeah. Something weird. But yeah. No, NBA Jam, I didn't have NBA Jam on my list, but that is a great pick at 4 because I think you're right. It's a great game when they've taken it and they've even like remade it, remodeled it now for systems now so you can go play it because if you're at the arcade and NBA Jam was there, not that we were in the era of a lot of like playing at the arcades, but you're at the beach or something like that, and
right.
and that was where I ever saw arcades was at the beach on the boardwalk. That's where you would see all the shiny lights and stuff. You go, all right, let's go check out the arcade. And if you got to play NBA Jam against another person, and it was 2-on-2, I believe, in NBA Jam, right?
Yep.
So, like, that was always so much fun. So much fun. No, that's a great pick.
Yeah, it was always 2v2, and like I said, they only had about, I think, like 8 teams, and I think they had, like, the Hornets. They had,
I think
like,
the Pistons might have been in it.
I think they were. Yeah, they always had, like, that era in, like, the mid-'90s. So, but they, like I said, they didn't have a team that was really stacked. Now, I think 1 or 2 teams were better than all the others. But like I said, the Bulls, they only had, like, Rodman, or not Rodman, it was Pippen and, like you said, like, Horace Grant or someone like that. It was like a...
That's a really good pick. I'm a little worried right now. I'm a little worried.
You're a little worried, huh? So my next pick is in. My next pick
Okay.
is in. I will describe it real fast because it doesn't really need a lot of explanation. So it is a more modern game on my list. It's actually the second newest game on my list. And this one is from I don't want to say that because it might give it away.
Sure.
But this one had a multitude of games on it. And this one is from the Nintendo Wii, and it is Wii Sports.
Oh, okay, yeah, I had this on my list. Yeah.
So Wii Sports had, like, I mean, not the Wii Sports Resort, because once Wii Sports became like this huge thing, then all of a sudden they were like, okay, you know, we're gonna come out with Wii Sports Resort and have all these ping pong games, all that kind of stuff or whatever. But on that they had like tennis and bowling.
Oh, it was revolutionary. It was a revolutionary game.
And that was and that was because it was all like the hand motions and stuff like that.
It was so cool. When Wii Sports came out, it was the first time you really had a game like this where you had a controller in your hand and you were away from the TV and it went by your motion and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the bowling. I remember. I swear to you, I had found the perfect bowling Wii Sports position. I knew exactly where to position a guy.
Ooh.
I knew exactly the right motion to use, and I would get strikes every time. And I think I bowled a 300 game once.
Oh, you have? I bowled
baseball,
3.
Yeah. Oh, it was. I mean, that was always the greatest thing. The baseball game was great. Those were the ones I played the most. Tennis was pretty fun too.
Yeah.
No, Wii Sports was on my list. That's a great pick at 5. I mean, again, I like I said, I'm a little worried. because your team's looking pretty damn good right now.
Because back in the day when I was in high school, so my middle sister ended up going to college, and like, you know, I think I was a sophomore or something like that. And every now and then, you know, my dad was working nights at the time. And my mom and I would just sit there and we'd say, oh, let's bowl a couple frames, and we just go in there and start playing bowling for like 2 hours after we eat dinner or something like that. And it was a blast. It was great memories. But I did bowl 3 perfect games for Wii Sports Bowling.
Put that on your resume, man.
Yeah, well,
put that on your resume.
My next job, I might need to.
It is. Yeah, there you go. That is a very good pick. I don't want to give you too much props because I don't want the fans automatically to.
Hey, you chose second, man. You said you wanted to choose second. You could have had that.
But I'm just saying you're putting together a really strong draft so far. So again, to recap, Mike right now has NCAA Football 2014, NBA Jam, and Wii Sports, which came out in 2006. I have MVP Baseball 2005 and Backyard Baseball 2001. I am on the clock for the 6th pick here, and I'll get right into it because we're already taking too much time. All right, with the 6th pick in the draft, I am going to go with Madden 2005.
Solid.
Madden
I have
2005 is my pick. It is one of the best Madden franchise. It was one of the last times. It was the last Madden game to be released on PlayStation, and the first Madden game to be released on the Nintendo DS. I never really played the DS. It was the first Madden game to have Xbox Live, so you could actually play your friends and things like that. Had Ray Lewis on the cover. It was revolutionary. I mean, this was a game that introduced some new features and things like that. People loved this game. I loved this game. I actually had it for like GameCube, I think, or something weird like that. I loved Madden 2005. I think with the Madden franchise, it gets a lot of criticism because I think it's fallen far. The game doesn't really entice people as much anymore. But Madden 2005 was an absolute killer of a game.
It was definitely good. And actually, I used to ask my mom every single year for Christmas if she can get me the new Madden. And this year, for 2005, and this is the only year she did it. I don't know why. I don't know if they were sold out or something like that. She got me the platinum version that had like the cover.
It was like the extra $10 or something.
Yeah.
It was like,
it didn't give you anything, but it just had a nice,
the games
nice
were
cover.
Like $30. That was probably like $60, like what games cost now.
It was crazy.
Platinum versions now, you got to spend like $100
Yeah, and it was crazy. Yeah, it didn't give me anything or anything like that because I just logged on. It was just like literally it was the game case, and then it had like a cover on it that was just like silver that like shined. I was like, okay, nice, this is sweet. But that was the first time. It was cool.
Madden lovers look fondly upon Madden 2005. I think it was one of the best. All right, I'll move on to the 7th pick of the draft. My 4th pick of games, and I am going to. So I've got about 5 left on my list that I'm looking at.
Ooh.
There's three that I really want to take, and I only have 2 picks left. So I'm gonna go. Okay, with my pick here. I'm going to take NBA Street Volume 2, which came out in 2003, and it is Volume 2 is the one I'm specifically talking about. And I'll tell you, it was one of those games that, it was one of those offshoots of, because the NBA franchises, the video game franchises, really weren't that great back then, back in that mid-2000s. I mean, you had like NBA 2K was kind of going, NBA Live was going. Those games were okay, but NBA Street Volume 2 kind of took things to a whole nother level. I mean, you built up the energy, and then you could do crazy moves. You blocking guys, dunking guys. There was a whole story mode as far as like going through the gauntlet of playing all these other teams. You could unlock NBA players to be on your NBA Street team and all that sort of stuff. I just think it was such kind of an innovative and interesting game. The soundtrack was also killer. NBA Street Volume 2 is my pick.
Yeah, I think that I mean, just like you said, the soundtracks make a game sometimes.
It really does, yeah.
There's a couple of NHL games that I like because they always do some really hardcore songs, stuff like that are really nice.
NHL games, very underrated for their soundtracks. NHL games actually have some really good soundtracks.
Yeah, I was going to go with an NHL game in this draft, but I actually stayed clear of those because there's so many of them and everything like that nature, and there's not really one clear-cut winner. So I think my pick is in. My 8th pick, or the 8th pick, not my 8th pick.
Right.
And the pick is in. It's another nostalgia game. It's a 90s game, okay? And this kind of set the tone, I believe, for the Gridiron games. And this game was released in 1997, and the game was on N64 for where I played. And I'm going with the original NFL Blitz.
Yeah, I have that on my list. I have the 2003 one on my list. But
they got better. Yeah, that's for sure.
NFL Blitz is a great pick. Great pick.
Yeah, they got better as like 2001 and all that kind of stuff. But this one is the original one where they were like, he throws it deep, and then all of a sudden, like you just like wait for like 5 seconds until the ball comes down, and you always do
beat the crap out of guys.
yeah, he said there do like a sumo wrestler move, and it's like weird.
It's insane.
It was just fun because it was like minor violence, but everyone got a kick out of it because it was so unrealistic, and like their muscles were like just 2 beach balls like stacked on top of each other.
It was so fun because you've got like your traditional sports simulation games where like you know what you're going to get with that. But NFL Blitz, similar to like what I'm saying with NBA Street, was it introduced a different level of gameplay for these sports that you love. And football is naturally a violent sport, and NFL Blitz really brought the violence. So that's a great pick there. So you have 1 pick left here, Mike.
I do, and I'm really torn between 3 of these. One of them I just added on there just in case. I will mention my honorable mentions here real quickly at the end.
Wait till I do mine, but yeah.
Right. The pick is in. My last pick. My starting 5.
So real quick, Mike so far has NCAA Football 2014, NBA Jam, Wii Sports 2006, and NFL Blitz. I'll say it right now. You've put together a really strong draft board with those 4 picks.
It's
Don't
probably
screw it up here.
It's probably going to come down to who likes you more than me.
I have 3 games on my list right now that I'm looking at. So I wonder if it's going to be one of those.
I bet at least 2 of them you don't have. At least 2 of the ones the last 4 I got. So the pick is in, and I'm going to go with a flyer here, and I'm going to try to appeal to some of the extra masses out there that do not really play too many sports video games. And this one is a wrestling game. And it is WWF No Mercy, released in 2000 on N64.
Wow.
This game,
okay.
I played a lot of hours in this game. They had a lot of cool like real people characters on there and stuff like that. They had so many different things you could do. You could do cage matches, you could do ladder matches, and you could beat people with a chair, and it's like all these different things you could do. And it was really realistic for its time. Released in 2000. But I went with that one because I tried to go a little off script because I have Wii Sports, an NBA game, and 2 football games. Try to go a little off script because you have 2 of the baseball games. And I just wanted to kind of go off the cuff a little bit.
Okay, I don't hate the pick, but I'm going to say very risky pick to take here.
It's very risky.
At 9. I mean, there are so many other games on the board right now that I am wondering if that pick is going to cost you the draft. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to sway the people in any direction because I want everybody to get a fair shake here.
But you can make fun of me when we talk about
bringing a wrestling game here. Unbelievable. All right, last pick of the draft here. All right, I have 3 games that I'm looking at as possible choices here. None of them is a wrestling game. That's for sure.
Good.
I will say there's 2 games I'm really, really looking at, and I'm going to make this pick here. With the final pick in the draft and my 5th pick here, I'm going to go with MLB Slugfest 2003.
Okay.
MLB Slugfest 2003. Similar, and I know I'm going with a lot of baseball.
This guy loves baseball, man.
I'm wondering if that's going to cost me, but I'm just going to say, MLB Slugfest, if you've played it before, you know it is an experience that you'll never forget. You've got the girls wearing the skimpy baseball uniforms in the loading screen. You've got the guy, which, by the way, I used to play that game because in my house, the console was on the main TV. Like that's not that we had TVs all over the house, but it was like that's where the PlayStation was where like the living room where everybody else sat. And I remember one time I was sitting there and I was playing MLB Slugfest, and my mom and aunt were like sitting on the couch talking, and they look over at the TV, and it's one of those hot girls with the bats like on her shoulder, and she's wearing the like skimpy baseball uniform, like unbuttoned, like, and they were just like, "What are you playing?" And I was like,
"Don't worry about it."
But you could. I mean,
you could punch the first baseman.
Oh, dude, anywhere you hit it, all you had to do was punch the fielders, and you could get all the way around the bases if you kept punching them enough. If the guys threw at you, sometimes you could go charge the mound. You get rage, you get the fire. The baseball part was really an afterthought. It was
like a wrestling. That's a wrestling game.
When you're a teenager or like even younger, when this came out, it was one of those things where like it got you were able to get some rage out playing MLB Slugfest. Right. The announcers were always really funny too. The music was pretty good. So yeah, that's going to be my final pick of the draft here.
All right. So what are your honorable mentions? I got 3.
I got 3 actually. I've got 3. I added one to my list. I've got 3 honorable mentions.
Okay.
NBA 2K11. Which was the Michael Jordan game where you could actually play all the memorable moments in MJ's career, and it was an awesome game. I played that on Xbox 360. That was a great game. I have NCAA Basketball 2010, which was the last NCAA basketball game, I believe, that they made. And that was just a lot of fun because they had the ability, you could play the ESPN broadcast or the CBS broadcast. They had 2 broadcast crews on one video game, which was unbelievable.
Crazy. Yeah.
And then I can't remember the exact year because I added this late, but the PGA Tour game or the Tiger Woods game where it was the Ryder Cup game, I think, where you could play the Ryder Cup, and I remember playing that game a lot because it was like I forget the exact game, but it was. I'm just trying to do some quick. PGA Tour 11. PGA Tour 11. It looks like that was
Tiger Woods 11.
Tiger Woods PGA Tour 11, where it had Tiger and Rory on the cover. Okay. And it was the first time that they featured the Ryder Cup tournament, and that was a lot of fun. So honorable mention there. Golf game wasn't going to make this list, but those are my honorable mentions.
My first honorable mention, just because I'll go along with you, I was putting Tiger Woods 10 on there with the cover of Tiger, going crazy at the U.S. Open on his broken leg when he made the putt. Me and my buddy used to play Tiger Woods all the time in his basement, just go crazy, sit there, and it was awesome. My next one was SSX. You ever played that before? The snowboarding game?
Yeah.
Yep, that was released in 2000. A lot of these were 2000. SSX, the original one, you're going down like Mount Everest, and you're doing all these crazy tricks and stuff like that. That was also fun, but I didn't really want to go because they made like 3 or 4 of those games because they were so popular. Didn't go with that one though because of the sole fact that I was trying to win this thing. And then Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, as you mentioned.
Okay.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 was the best one out of all of them that they made. That was released in 2000, but I didn't want to have any controversy, so I said let's go with the wrestling one instead because those are my 3 honorable mentions. But I thought I was really in between Tony Hawk and WWF, but I wanted to take a little risky pick. See if I can get a nice little lottery winning ticket there.
So Mike had NCAA Football 2014, NBA Jam, Wii Sports, NFL Blitz, and WWF No Mercy. I took MVP Baseball 2005, Backyard Baseball 2001, Madden 2005, NBA Street Volume 2, and MLB Slugfest 2003. That is your best sports video games draft. You can go ahead and see our picks and vote for your favorite on Twitter at the DC Crossover. If you're listening on Sunday, we'll be putting that poll up on Monday. We have a couple items to do before we end the show, and as we like to do, we like to hit up the final lap, a chance to give quick analysis on some big stories in sports. 90 seconds on the clock. Here we go. Mariners pitcher, first guy to get caught with the substance in the glove today, Mike. 10-game suspension on the way. He got kicked out of the game. It's our first one.
I mean, that's literally like trying to sneak on to a ride that you're not tall enough for.
So dumb.
It makes no sense. Dumb. Everyone's looking for it.
Yeah, it's so stupid. The Lightning and the Canadiens in the Stanley Cup Finals, Mike. What do you got?
I just think Tampa Bay is gonna wax the floor with these guys. I mean, I think they're going to probably win in 5, in my opinion.
There was a woman, I don't know if you saw this video, a woman holding a sign at Tour de France, took out like hundreds of cyclists. She was holding up the sign towards the camera, didn't see the cyclist right behind her. It caused a massive pileup.
Yeah, I don't understand that. The Tour de France is like, I understand it's a huge thing in that sport, but it's like they have the pedestrian just walking next to the riders. It's like one little twig crazy. Could like make a guy flip over. Like it's so dangerous.
The Detroit Pistons got the number 1 pick, Mike. Ring the bell, ding ding ding. Detroit
You're excited
Pistons.
For that.
Detroit is back. You excited as well?
Are you getting Cade Cunningham, do you think?
I'm getting Cade Cunningham. Otherwise, I'm marching down to Detroit and talking to Troy Weaver. And lastly, the NFL has approved a plan in which teams can wear alternate helmets with their throwback uniforms starting in 2022. The second helmet can be worn only with so-called classic, alternate, or color rush jerseys, and all players must be fitted for both helmets before training camp. Because in the past, the league had said the team could only wear one helmet. They could only wear one type of helmet.
Yep.
And now, because of safety precautions and things like that, now we could be seeing some pretty cool alternate helmets, especially classic helmets, Mike, on the way. This is good for the league.
Yeah, for the Washington football team, I saw a poll that said, which one out of these 3 would you like? And there was, I forgot, the first one was the, weird, rust color thing or whatever it was. Right. And then they had the Darryl Green one that they had on there, or at least Darryl Green was wearing it. They had the spear, and then the third one was, the mustard yellow with the R and all that stuff. Now, I don't know with their whole entire, name change and all that stuff, if they're really going to go with any of those. Because it would seem cool to have the mustard color, because I think that little logo doesn't really raise any controversy because there's not really, anything on there. But I always loved the spear, man. The spear it looks so cool. I actually have a Darryl Green jersey of it was a 70th anniversary jersey of Darryl Green, and it was the dark maroon with the spear. So I would like that. I don't want that weird, like I said, the rust colored one, but it would look pretty cool because a lot of these teams have some really cool ones, and I've been sending you stuff on Instagram from all these retro ones. Yeah,
it's going to be awesome to see the classic helmets coming 2022. We got 2 items left on the show here. First up is the trivia question, where Mike asks me some DC sports trivia. You can play along at home. Can you get it right? Can I get it right? We'll find out. I've gotten most of the questions right. I believe I've only gotten 1 wrong so far.
Yeah, 1 wrong.
Let's see how I do on this one.
Last week, I think you are 3 of 4 for WFT/Redskins questions, and you are 2 of 2 for Nationals questions.
All right.
So here we go. This is a WFT one. What Hall of Fame cornerback announced his retirement just 1 season into a 7-year, $56 million contract with the Redskins. So here we go again.
Oh, crap.
Think about it here. What Hall of Fame cornerback announced his retirement just one season into a 7-year, $56 million contract with the Washington Redskins at that time?
So here's
think about it this way, though. At certain times,
my mind is blank.
You got one question. Remember, that's the rule. One question.
Did you give a year? That's not my one question.
No, it was not a year. But think about this. Think about Hall of Fame, and also think about I would say it was post 1990.
Good Lord. I mean, I'm telling you, when I say I have nobody in mind, like Brian Mitchell, like I have no. He played quarterback, didn't he? Yeah,
no,
I know. He
Brian Mitchell. I think no. Brian Mitchell played like running back.
Running back. Yeah,
he's like a halfback.
This is what I'm telling you. It's like Redskins fans are screaming at me right now. They're like, "You're an idiot. You got to have somebody." Quarterback. Here's my one question: is it a white guy?
No.
Okay. I don't know. I'm just
there are 3 WFT Redskin questions on here. One of them is a really easy one from 2014 you would get in a second. The other one is actually a funny question from 1997. But this one, I believe.
I'm just telling you. I know if you are a football fan, you're a bigger football fan than me. If you're listening to the show and you know this automatically. Football is just not my wheelhouse. I've done pretty well. My gut has led me through.
It's on. The guy is on TV.
There's
not a lot of cornerbacks that are on TV.
Was Deion Sanders? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what position this guy played. Look, just give me the buzzer. I said
cornerback. I said cornerback.
I don't want to embarrass myself. I've got it wrong.
Well, your guess after I said that was right. It was Deion Sanders.
Oh, well, I was wrong though. I was wrong though.
It was prime time. He did play for the WFT for literally one season, and then he retired after signing.
That's interesting. Again, I'm not a Redskins.
Because think about it, at that time, $56 million was a ton.
That's super interesting. Yeah,
a ton of money.
That's an over $100 million contract today, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So that was for prime time back in the
prime
days.
time. I'm not going to give
3 for 5. 3 for 5
it counts as
for
a
WFT.
wrong. It's a wrong answer, even though I threw it out at the right one at the end. It's a wrong answer. I got it wrong. Speaking of things we get wrong, let's hit up the money line. Cha-ching. We both went 1-1 last week. Neither of us was able to gain ground or lose ground. I currently sit at 9-13. You sit at 11-11. We got locks and we got upsets. My lock, the Phoenix Suns. I'm going to say they close out Game 5. I'm going to say they take Game 5. They finish off the Clippers. They've been dominating so far. They take the series. They win Game 5. That is my lock. My upset. Hey, this served me well last time.
It did.
I'm going to go with our Washington Mystics over the Connecticut Sun. I believe that game's on Wednesday. I think so. It's Tuesday or Wednesday. But I'm going to go with Washington Mystics over the Sun in that one.
You got two Suns. You got 2 Suns on there. You got the Suns closing out, and then the Mystics over the Suns.
It's like Tatooine in Star Wars, or those are 2 moons. I don't know. What's your pick?
Real quick, did you see that? What was it? I forgot the announcer's name. He was like, "And Kawhi Leonard's going crazy," and he's just like sitting there staring.
Mike Breen. Shout out to Mike Breen.
That's
great,
right.
One of the best. That
was hilarious. So my lock is Tampa Bay over Montreal. I said it earlier in the show. I think Tampa Bay is going to win in 5 games. I think their offense is just way too good. In Montreal, they're good, but I don't think they've had a hard enough road to get here to the Stanley Cup Finals. My upset. Dodgers over San Fran on Tuesday. Walker Buehler is pitching for the Dodgers, but San Fran has Kevin Gausman, and Kevin Gausman has a sub-2 ERA. So I think that the LA Dodgers take San Fran on Tuesday as my upset.
It's a good pick, and we'll see. We'll see who gains some ground here, or we're both going to probably go 1-1 like we've done for weeks in a row. Right. We want to remind you, of course, to please rate, review, subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to. Again, if you are a podcast consumer, this show is on every platform that you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, even on YouTube. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. We put the full video episode as well. Just search the DC Crossover on YouTube. You'll find our previous episodes. And then on the Contender, you can listen to us live. You're at work on Tuesday. You're on your phone. Why not throw on the Contender, or you're on your laptop? TheContender.com. That's Contender with a K. Our show airs at noon, and it plays throughout the week. There's also other content, Chicago sports, DC sports, a lot to listen to on the Contender. Definitely support them. Well, Mike, it's going to be another busy week for the Washington Nationals. 3 different teams are playing this week because of this crazy schedule.
Right.
The LA teams are on the horizon. We'll see. We'll see where we things stand heading into the All-Star break. And next episode, we'll probably be talking about some of the All-Star selections as far as which nationals might be getting in, which selections we disagree with. And, of course, please vote on the best sports video games draft between Mike and myself, our starting 5. You did great, Mike. I like your team a lot.
Yeah. I tried to go outside of the box for most of them, so there you go.
No, these are really Wii Sports. Probably the best pick of the draft at number 5, Wii Sports. Amazing game. Amazing game. It really was. You know what? The only one that sucked with Wii Sports was basketball. I think the basketball one was the worst one out of all. But golf was fun. Wii Sports golf was pretty dope.
Well, because you play the basketball game and you're sitting there and you pass, and they're like, all right, what do you want to do? You want to pass or shoot? And I'm like, okay, well, there's no dribbling or anything like that.
No,
so.
It was all about golf, tennis, and bowling. And baseball, too. Baseball was kind of fun, hitting bombs off of these other Wii guys.
Home run!
They'd get, like, the sweat would come off their heads when they were giving up too many home runs and stuff like that. It would get a little interesting. But by the way, I always created so many Miis. Those were like the Wii character people. I created like 15 different Miis so I could play like really big teams and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of time in the summer as a kid.
you were that guy who when they said, all right, select your Mii, and all like a million of them just show up in a line.
So many. Follow Mike on Twitter at Surround16. Follow the show at the DC Crossover. We'll see you next week, good people. Episode 67 in the books. Have a good one.